All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a wonderful day. It was quite eventful in markets today, and it all culminated with Nvidia earnings beating, saving the stock market, and putting February seasonality on its back. Because I don't know if you see this. This is the market after hours. This is not a penny stock. This is literally the S&P 500 moving after Nvidia's report. So this is very interesting. We are going to put a lot of momentum things to the test. However, we have one big event now that we're watching. We have a little bit more for this week. Earnings is getting wrapped up, but now we really got to ask ourselves where the market is going to wrap up February and the quarter. So Chad, I got the plays, I got the keys. What I need from you, a thumbs up on the video. Make sure you're subscribed, and if you don't know, we are live Monday through Friday, 30 minutes before open, youtube.com/the stack market. We will see you there in the morning. Run it, baby.
Working to the couch, it's a 2020 election. Live in the hills, but I still get a spread. Started with a live, but I still reinvest it. Feel how I feel, then you feel like a blessing. I just want the lesson, I just want protection. I'm up and I'm down, but they sound like progression. Farmer never plans if he waits for perfection. Finger to the down, hold it down.
Right off the bat, before we get into any of it, I'm assuming you heard the results from Nvidia. They beat EPS 516 versus 464. They beat revenue 22 billion versus 20 billion, and they guided higher to 24 billion next quarter versus estimates of $20 billion. They did it again, or estimates of 22, excuse me, but they did it again. They raised, they beat, everything was good. The only difference was the stock actually ended up going higher, but not as high as people were pricing in on the options ahead of it. But now, to put it in the grand scope of what happened today, the minutes weren't anything shocking, and Nvidia earnings was good. So the way I'm looking at it moving forward, this is going to add a lot of much needed positive sentiment after today was about to be the third red day in a row. We did have quite the wild move. Again, we were actually touching a new low below the CPI close just about like 10, 20 minutes into power hour, and then 30, 40 minutes later, you rocketed up, and before you knew it, you were hitting highs, and then Nvidia earnings after the bell sent us going insane. So there was big moves there. The minutes, honestly, today was a lot bigger. I got to turn off the after hours. You could kind of get a better feel for what actually went down here, but this was the minutes. They came out. They did have a hawkish tilt. There wasn't anything new, a little bit more positive talk towards quantitative tightening, but everything was generally the same, had the same messaging that the Fed is going to want to wait before any rate cuts. Market did go down, then went up, but like we're saying, this is all the pre-Nvidia move here, so it's not like we had anything. We got a little bit of movement, but today was about to be a down day, but now with these earnings doing good, minutes not getting in the way, this sentiment may be able to flip positive here, or at least now until next week, where we do get a lot more data in terms of the different sets we're getting, but also PCE is going to be the main one. But all in all, today was a good day. You had two different levels of event risk in the minutes and Nvidia earnings. You avoided both of those. Everything is looking good, and that's after a couple of red days, after just touching highs. And really, this was one big factor of today when it's all said and done. If Nvidia does have good news or good upgrades and follow through tomorrow, and this keeps going up here, it has had a big effect on the market, and that's why everybody was paying a lot of attention to it coming into today. So watch out for that. That's the first big key. Now coming into key number 2, we've been talking about seasonality and how things should be playing out. Well, this is a lot of new information today. Again, the minutes and coming into next week, that's going to be your last attempt at moving anything. But today was a very good reminder of how quickly sentiment can shift, and also that stocks aren't that weak. Not only do you see what Nvidia is doing to the market after hours, but today we had a bad 20-year auction. I believe it was the worst tail on record And remember, the 20-year auction does not have as an extensive history as some of the other bond auctions. I think that one only goes back to like 2018 or something like that. It's fairly recent. So granted, it is still the worst in history, but last time we had a bad 20-year bond auction, the stock market sold off along with bonds, and it was a pretty bad day. This time around, that was part of what you got here today. Not only did you have the minutes right before you did have the bad bond auction, you could kind of see it when you look at the chart. Again, this is the minutes. This is the after hour, just to show you how much bigger Nvidia really was on the market. But this was the minutes. This was the bond auction here, and you could even see on like TLT, the bonds really took a beating after that. It was a very bad auction, but like I'm telling you, markets still found a way to go up by the end of the day. Now they have Nvidia. Now you're having this good news. Minutes didn't get in the way. This was a very good reminder, even watching how bonds are staying low and market is now ramping its way back up again. Stocks aren't that weak, but that situation in bonds may still be moving around, but it doesn't mean it'll stop the market, especially when there's a lot of positive sentiment being driven to factors from earnings and now down to this earnings here that we're getting with Nvidia. So keep your eyes out for that. And then finally, this is the main thing that I'm saying here. You have the PMIs for the rest of the week. That's going to be on Friday. That's your only big data for the rest of this week. But then the PCE next week, that is going to be your only big catalyst that we have to deal with. So we are going to have a couple of days of no real events and earnings wrapping up. Maybe we're going to be able to drift or melt up or find a way to solidify either upside or downside momentum. And again, that's how long this, depending on how long this sentiment stays up. But we might be getting some other cues from Europe and China now as we get into this Friday and then working our way into the main event of PCE, which will probably be the next big thing that moves us. Besides that, there will be bond auctions, but we'll see where all of it takes us. We'll see where the earnings open at tomorrow. But now, let us get into the plays. So, right off the bat, I got a couple of different plays. We made a couple of earnings moves today, but we did keep them a lot cheaper and not as many. And then I guess I'll start with the first big play, Nvidia. This thing was pricing in a lot. So I'm saying this right here. There's definitely going to be a premium kill. Why? You probably heard people talking about it. If you were there on stream when we did the earnings previews, we went over the pricing. Nvidia, when the stock was around like 670, or I think it was at like 667, 670 at the time. We did the pricing and it was pricing in about 10%. It was like $200 billion of market cap either direction. A lot of people were talking about this. Well, take a look. Even after it's going up here right now, it did move a lot bottom to top. I did make a play and I got around 10%, but the stock's only up about 4% from where a lot of options were pricing, maybe give or take a little bit more. But the fact of the matter is, those options were expensive. They were pricing in a big move. It is moving below that. There is definitely going to be a premium kill, but I like their earnings. I've said that every single time it's beat. The only difference was it would usually only go up a little bit, or it would just sell off right away and kind of stay holding at a level. We got to watch how tomorrow plays out, but the way I'm looking at it, it's either going to be an early move tomorrow and make a gigantic move in the first 3 to 5 minutes, or people were talking about watch for it to kind of work out all the bets that were placed in the last couple days. Then middle of the day, depending on how things are at, watch if this thing gets picked up. So I'm going to be watching that. Going to be watching to see if sentiment holds up even beyond the morning, because people may be very optimistic on this in the morning. And then finally, sympathies. So I did make a play. I'll go over my play on Nvidia. I did get out of it, but I did make a play on Intel today, and this is something I'm going to be keeping an eye out for, is all of the sympathies related to these chips now, because you have gotten all these earnings. You're wrapping up most of them. You've gotten the big dog out of the way. Let's start seeing how they start moving in tandem, or which ones start to lag and lead. I think that is going to be a great opportunity in the chips, but that will depend upon broader sentiment and, again, things actually holding up beyond just any morning gap in momentum. So we'll see how that plays out. As far as the plays, though, I did two different ones. I made an option today before the earnings on Nvidia. We'll see how this plays out, but I called this the ghetto sympathy because I didn't want to spend a lot of money. Nvidia was pricing a lot, and like I said, after doing the pricing on Nvidia, I thought it was in the best interest to not play it at all and play it afterwards, and that's what I ended up doing. I did that on the TD account with shares, but I grabbed one option today, a 47.50 call at 43 cents. I grabbed two options yesterday for $40, and they fell out the money. That was the 50, so I averaged down by by grabbing an option closer to the money. I thought this was the ghetto relation to any of the Nvidia earnings, and you didn't have to pay as much because now the chips have good sentiment. Everything's going up. We'll see how they all work together, or maybe Intel starts lagging the pack because they didn't do good on earnings. So watch out for that. As far as the other plays, I bought shares of Nvidia after hours. I bought 24 or 25 shares at 664. It was on the first candle down. They dropped like $20 lower, then it rocketed up, and then I sold out around 740. I got about $1,975 off of my after hour shares. So no options, no plays before. Waited till the earnings, thought they were good. It had the fat candle down, was willing to take the risk, got out after a good timing there. I think I got lucky after hours, but now have no other plays but the Intel. We'll see where these go tomorrow. I am definitely down to look for those morning and middle of the day plays on Nvidia, but that is play number one. Then play number two, I went for this one. This one I'm already holding, but I may look for an option on this tomorrow. Cody, kind of random here, but I've been holding this in shares for a while. They reported a little bit earlier in the session, but I noticed they're up. I'm positive on those shares, but now a lot of other consumer stocks and value names like Estee Lauder and even random like consumer retail like Abercrombie, they've been doing quite well in this environment. Again, we're working through rate cuts and also working through some of this data. As long as that's been holding up, some of these companies have been making outsized moves, and some of them have also stayed pinned. So depending on sentiment, going to be watching this. Like I said, if there's a cheap option, I may want to look at 2 standard deviations, but the trick is there is no catalyst with this. So going to watch it out. Otherwise, writing out the shares, that's play number 2. And then finally, play number 3. Let's see if we go out with a bang, ladies and gentlemen. Even though Nvidia is over and it was a very good ending to earnings, we'll see where it opens up tomorrow. But Square, Booking, and Melly, these are going to be some earnings plays that report tomorrow. We're going to be going over the previews. I like these names. The only problem is that Square is the only cheap one on this list. It's a little bit more expensive in terms of earning names. Again, Booking is a $3,000 stock. Melly is a $1,700 stock. They're not really that cheap, but these things can move. Maybe a small share play depending on how the premiums are looking, and you can play that for the after hours. But I like these names. These will be good, but like I'm saying, watch out for the sentiment in the morning. Usually all the earnings are good. If nothing is bad in Europe and China tomorrow, we'll get a little bit of a lift, but the question is, does that last beyond the first 2 hours? If so, watch out for the pre-earnings. Maybe even some of these names, they may be too expensive to hold and make the play for earnings, but you may be able to flip out if there is going to be a earnings pre-run-up. But lately, a lot of those have been clapped. I literally got clapped on the Palo Alto ones yesterday, and then I forgot the other one that I got clapped on a couple of days or the week before. So we'll see how it plays out. Be careful with all of them, but definitely we got a couple more earnings to wrap up. And then besides that, I did sell out of a couple of plays. We got out of the Roku with like 400 or 500%. Then I got out of the Twilio, that was 100%, and then Neo, that was an earnings play from yesterday for like 50%, but wanted to recoup some money because other plays did fall out that we were green on, like Pinduoduo and some of the other earnings from last week. So I said, all right, we'll pull some back. We had a lot of expiries, and even the profits from last week have not hit 1,000% this week, and it's already, oh my gosh, it's already Thursday, so maybe the streak ends, but we will see. Other than that, going to keep an eye on gold if that does fluctuate a lot, even still looking at that oil play. Only problem is I'm trying to find a play where I get little exposure to oil or cheap exposure without having to have too much of the downside and playing the breakout. So maybe we can look for some cheaper options. But other than that, I'm going to play into the data, watch the sentiment, get ready for next week, and see where the market takes us into the end of the first quarter. But that is your watch list, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure Hydra Healthy ready to go. Make sure post your watch list. Make sure we see you there in the morning. I need the armor on. I need the helmet shining. And I need you to think a little bit broader, baby. Get some confidence by widening the scope. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it hanging. It's a cliffhanger. It's a cliffhanger, Chad. The earnings, no more cliffhanger from Nvidia. But, Chad, I love you. Drink that water. Stay hydrated. Stay healthy. Stay in the game. I will see you in the morning. And horn.